Hello guys, welcome to Unity Lighting and Baking. Okay, so what I have now is a very simple, actually the default Unity lighting condition. You have a sun and then a skybox, and that's it. And the model are just dragged in. Okay, I have very few models that has a material. The sofa is the only one who has a finished material, and other things are just a simple material, so we can focus on the lighting part. The material, this one is done in Substance Spinner, and then the export presets is using Unity 5 standard metallic. The format of the image will be the Targa or TGA. That's everything I have. And then there's one more thing I do have changed on the model, which is the model has checked the generate light map UVs to create a new UV set specifically optimized for baked light map, and then I applied that. Okay, and I also have the collider, so I can work around on it. It's gonna create a mesh collider on it, which is not really that efficient, but for the demonstration purpose here, it's good enough. So anyway. So let's start with the very beginning. I'm gonna grab this sun here. Okay, I'm gonna delete it, and I'm gonna also go to the window lighting tab. Okay, and then here I'm gonna go skybox. Okay, I'm gonna also switch that to none. So we start with scratch. All right, so let's do our first light, which we can create our own directional light for the sun. Okay, now this new directional light has a problem, which is doesn't cast any shadow. Okay, to make it cast shadow, you want to go to the inspector and then change the shadow tab to any of the shadow tab. And they're also really easy to understand. The hard shadow is really hard, and then soft shadow is softer. Okay, if you look at the shadow quality, they are awful. Okay, extremely awful, like unbearably awful. So the resolution of the shadow tab, if you look at here, it's using the quality settings of the lighting. Okay, you can change that to override it. You can change that to very high resolution to get a better result, but still a really low quality in my opinion. You can choose soft shadow too. Okay, now to make the quality higher, you can also go to edit, project settings, and then the quality. Okay, now here what you can change underneath shadow is that the shadow, that's actually the resolution overall control of the shadow. If you're using the scene settings, that's what this is. Okay, the shadow projection tab, you have two different tabs: close fit and stable. Close fit using higher resolution, so if you choose close fit, you can see the quality is instantly much better. The downside of using close fit is that it may cause some wobble effects when you have the camera moved. Okay, the stable is free of that problem. Okay, so but the quality here is just so much better. So if you want to change that, you can change to that. But if you want to get rid of the wobble effects, which I think is pretty minimal, you can go to stable fit, but you can also change that cascade split. Okay, now if you drag this edge of the purple bar and drag it in, you see now the quality of the lighting is getting better. Okay, or the resolution of the shadow is getting better, and you can also see that when I drag it in, the purple area is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So this purple area is actually the area that are really close to the camera, and then you make that area smaller, but you're using the same resolution to represent it. That's why they're getting higher resolution. Okay, and you can also drag the green area in to give the green area more resolution. So now everything on the purple and green area are actually having higher resolution. Okay, so that way you can get similarly high results. But just be aware that anything far away, if you go far away and look at it, there, see the quality is actually getting lower. Let's see the green area. Oh, its green area is actually, yeah, See when the green area is up there. See there is a big difference between the camera, the shadow quality there. So in other words, you can redistribute the shadow resolution based on the distance of the object. I think that's a really nice feature too. Okay, so that's one of the quality settings you can go for. I'm gonna use the soft shadow instead. I think they looks really nice. Okay. Now another problem. Okay, let's rotate the light to maybe here, and you see there is a line here. Okay, and that line seems to have no reason to exist. See this line here? It doesn't actually make any sense. Okay, so how is that line even there? Well, Unity, when it's casting shadows to avoid weird artifact, they're actually having this normal bias on the light, and they shrink the object in based on the normal direction and use that to cast shadow. Okay, so that's what's causing that. You can drag the normal bias all the way back to 0, and that's gonna fix that problem. Okay, but that's also gonna cause some normal problem. Okay, so if you have those kind of weird, some weird normal effect there, you may want to give it some value there. I do suggest to give it some value and not 0. Okay. Okay, and I think that's good enough. Another thing you can do to get rid of that weird shadow is you can select the model. Okay, and then underneath the mesh, let's actually have the normal bias back so we can see some of the things here. Okay, so another way of getting rid of this is select the model that has that shadow issue there. Select the model that is casting that shadow, and you can change the mesh renderer and change the cast shadow to set. Okay, that's gonna eliminate that too, but just be aware that that's gonna have double performance hit on that object only, which in my opinion doesn't really matter too much to me. Okay, unless you're doing like on a very slow mobile mobile phone. But the thing is the hardware are getting faster and faster. Okay, so you want to always experiment with new and then high intensity performance intensity things, because those are going to be in the future, right? So don't stuck yourself in legacy stuff. Okay, I always encourage people to try to practice with new techniques, even though sometimes they're expensive performance wise, but you know they're going to be in the future. But anyway, so that's the shadow quality. We have talked a lot about it, like the quality here, the bias, normal bias, and then the thing underneath the quality here. That's all the things available for you to tackle it, to take it. All right. So now I have a sunlight. It's custom shadow. Everything looks fine. But let's go to this corner and look at the wall here. This wall doesn't have any color change. Okay, so the wall on this side and the wall on the other side, they're not having any color different. That's not realistic, and that doesn't really make any sense. That's because they're not actually being lighted at all. Okay, so everything here in the scene have no indirect lighting at all. The reason for that is because the model is non-static. So you need to assume that they're gonna move, and it's not gonna be calculated or baked. Okay, so let's check that as static. Okay, and you see at the lower left corner, some progress has been went through, and then if you look at the model again, you will see that the environment is so much different. Okay, so much more different. See that little line there? Okay, that line is because of the resolution is really low. When it gets closer, it disappears. Okay, and that's because of my graphic sorry, not graphic, the quality here. My green line is maybe the quality of the green line is, the green area is is low. I can drag that in to get rid of that. Okay, oh, still there actually. Drag it in more. Okay, when that disappears. All right, so now I eliminated those weird lighting. Okay, so after the baking, you see now the environment is more realistic. even it's really dark. It's really dark because we don't have any environment, and then the also we don't have camera exposure being changed, so it's assuming using the mid-tone color as the middle brightness. But we all know that our eye could adapt to dark and bright colors to automatically change the exposure. Okay, we need to have that later too. But for now, it's at least realistic, just like on the alien planet. Okay, that's how it should look like. Anyway, so let's select the light and let's change something like the intensity. Okay, now you see that when I change the intensity or I rotate this light, okay, notice that Unity doesn't rebake. Okay, now the reason for that is because the baking method is real time. This real time is not the real time we are familiar with in older engines. This real time is baked. That's why it's in the baking section. Okay, so what's really baked though is not the old school way of baking the shadow, the shading in direct lighting directly as the image multiplied on top of the model, but on the other hand, it's baking the relationship between the different objects and use that to enhance the ray tracing progress. Okay, so that means when you rotate the light, because the relationship between models are not changing, that means you don't have to rebake. Okay, so anything you can change here, like the color of the lights, will not required to be rebaked. Okay, which is nice. Although performance-wise, it's more intensive than traditional baking way. Okay. But if you move something like this sofa, let me move it. You see rebaking is happening here because object has moved, their relation is different now, so you have to rebake. Okay, it's gonna take a little while to bake. Let me Control Z to go back. All right, so that is basically what baking is here, real-time ways, and then you can change that to baked way. Okay, baked way and real-time, they're all used to contribute to indirect lighting, so they're not going to affect any direct lighting. Only indirect lighting will be affected there. The difference between real-time and baked is just like what I mentioned earlier. Real-time supports the changing of the lighting, no matter its direction or the color here. Okay, so real-time is better, but performance-wise, it's more expensive. Baked is more suited for mobile or slower platforms. Real time is better for PC or high-end consoles. Okay. The quality of baking will be listed here. You have pre-computed rendered real-time GI, and then you have the baked GI. Baked GI is this option. Real-time is this one, pre-computed real-time GI. Okay. And their quality setting is actually not that complicated. You can just double those numbers to enhance the quality. But just be aware that doubling those numbers can change the render time really dramatically. So you don't want to crank out that too much. As long as the graphic looks good enough, then you don't want to change that too much. The general GI is the general resolution or the quality setting of those two. Okay, there are a couple options here, but we'll talk about those later. Okay, so right now I have the environment being lighted, but it's too dark, and one of the reasons for that is because we don't even have a environment. Okay, so let's create some environment. I think the sunlight is actually too strong on the outside. I'm gonna go back and change my sunlight intensity back to 1. Okay, maybe a little bit higher than that, so my inside may looks a bit brighter. Okay, so let's actually give it an environment. I'm gonna go steal one of the image, HDR image from substance spinner. Okay, because those looks awesome. You can I bought Substance Spinner on Steam, so I need to go to my Steam apps, common Substance Spinner, and then resource shelf, and then environments, where is it, here, and then exterior. Okay, I'm gonna just steal this one, drag this one down to import it into Unity. If you bought the Substance Spinner online on their website, it's gonna be a program underneath program files, actually program files here, not the 32-bit version. Okay, it's gonna be listed here somewhere. Anyway, so this is the HDR image. Okay. Now, because it's HDR, you want to uncheck sRGB because it's the linear color space, and then the texture shade will texture shape has to change to cube to convert that into a cube map. Okay, and then it becomes the ball. You can drag this ball to the sky to assign it. Okay, that will give you environment. Okay, now as soon as I have that, you see now my scene becomes super shiny. So what is actually being reflected? We can go create a 3D object and a sphere. Okay, and then we can create a new material for it. Let's call this super shiny material. Okay, drag that to the ball. Okay, we're gonna change the metallic and then the smoothness all the way up. You can now see what's being reflected is actually just the sky. Okay, as if Unity doesn't really care about have any geometry in the scene. So the reason for that is using ray tracing to get information from real geometry is just too expensive for real-time calculation. So Unity or most common contemporary engines are using this thing called the reflection probe. Okay, you can go to create or game object, light, reflection probe here. Okay, that's gonna create something called a reflection probe. And the instance I created that, you see the lighting now, or the reflection at least, is getting much better. Okay, and you see this ball is capturing the environment. Okay, so there will be 6 cameras on this ball, top, bottom, left, right, and front, back. Those 6 cameras are capturing the environment and store the things they see as reflection as a cube map. And then everything inside of this big box here that belongs to this reflection probe will be using that cube map captured as a fake reflection. Okay. So if you drag this away, you see now when everything is getting out of that box range, it becomes super shiny again. Okay, because you don't have any information to reflect from. To tweak the shape of the box, you can go to edit mode and then drag the things up and down by dragging the middle vertex there. I don't know why that one is super small. It's like the hardest thing to manipulate in my opinion. Why can't you just have just like Maya, you can click on the face anywhere and drag it in, right? How hard is that? Anyway, so what I'm doing now is make it smaller and make it cover the room only. This room, okay. And then for the other room, although it's really small, I'm gonna duplicate this reflection probe and move it to the other room. Okay. Now the reason I need 2 reflection probe here is because I don't want anything from the other room to be reflected in this room here. And I know that if I have only 1 reflection probe, that's not gonna be the case. Everything in this room will be reflected by objects in this room too if I don't have 2 reflection probes. So depending on how many rooms you have, if you're doing interior, every room should at least have 1 reflection probe to make it look convincing. For exterior, oftentimes you will see a lot of reflection probes scattered around or across the path the player will go through. Okay, especially on the area there are reflective stuff and you need them to reflect the correct objects, then there will be one or two reflection probe positioned there. Okay, so that's reflection probe, very important, very useful. Okay, so let's talk about the lighting here. It's too dark even with the sphere box out there. Okay, now there are a couple of things you can do. First thing you can do is actually make it brighter. You can go to lighting and then change the double click on the skybox to locate it. Okay, and then select it, go to inspector. You can change the exposure to make it brighter. Okay, but that's gonna make it too bright on the outside, which is not cool. Okay, so what else can you do is underneath lighting you can change the ambient intensity to crank that up. Also, that's gonna affect the lighting here too. Okay, and you can also change indirect intensity underneath general GI. It does almost the same thing. Okay, and eventually the bounce boost can be also cranked up, and that's gonna make the indirect lighting the secondary bounces and any bounce after the first bounce stronger. The good thing about this guy is that it doesn't really make that one too bright. Okay, and that's making the room brighter. Okay, so it's not realistic though, but sometimes it's better to use this guy to make the room even brighter. But the problem is I still feel it's not bright enough. Okay, now if you think about it in real life, it is actually true, because the exterior looks like this, right? If your eye is adapted, in this case our camera is adapted to the brightness on the outside, then the inside will be looking that dark. Okay, that's just the way it is, and human eye just is good at actually be able to automatic change the exposure, like what I mentioned earlier. So when you get into a room, everything becomes brighter because you changed your exposure, not because you're getting brighter. Okay, so you want to change the exposure of the camera here too. Okay, let's go to the game window and drag it here, or actually we can go to window and layout and do the 3x2 way. Okay, so you can see both. And then we have a camera here underneath the hierarchy. Hierarchy is here, main camera. Okay, let me just drag it to here and rotate to make it look inside of the room. Okay, so I'm gonna go change the exposure of this camera. The way to do that is actually, it's impossible to do that here because there is no exposure here, which is a little bit disappointing. And I think for any modern game engine, there should be a default setting for the camera to do that, or even post effect, just like Unreal Engine can do. But you can actually do that, have that by import the effect package, and let's import those out. And then underneath the standard here, oh, you can actually change that to a very small one, so you can see a list. Okay, and then let's go to the effects, image effect, and then a scripts. And here there's a lot of things you can do on the camera. Let's select the camera and then go find out this tone mapping and drag it to the camera. Okay, the tone mapping is changing the exposure of the camera. Okay, that's what we want, so you can crank that up to get better results. Although you cannot view that effect in the view part though, you need some coding to actually refer to the camera here in the editor, but it doesn't matter because the real camera we're seeing through is this one, so as long as this one works, right? It also gives you a warning. The camera is not HDR enabled. This will likely break the tone mapper. So let's check on HDR. Okay, but also you got a warning here too. It doesn't allow you to do that in forward rendering pass. The rendering path here can be changed here, right here. You can change that to deferred, okay? And that's gonna fix both problems, okay? Now the exposure here will be works better, okay? Now HDR camera is always preferred because it gives you more color range than the default camera, okay? So always have that on if you are aiming for high-end platforms like PC or PS4 or Xbox One. Okay, anyway, so now I have enough brightness here, okay, which is cool. Okay, so I just want to do that before we do other stuff because it just feels really dark up there. And of course you can have a coding to change it because right now if you go outside, you'll see it's too bright here, so you need a code or something to control the exposure based on the color brightness of the entire image. Okay. Anyway. Oh, and of course there are other things you can do with it. The camera, like you can have ambient occlusion, which is a nice feature here. This one actually, to give it some ambient occlusion to enhance the image quality here. You can make it stronger to have some nice touch and shadow. You can give it better quality. You can lower down the downsampling to get even better quality, but that's gonna cost some performance. Okay. So maybe not that strong, just a little bit. Okay, so you do have some touch and shadow here. You can see the difference. It's too flat here, having some ambient occlusion to give it maybe not that spread out. So give it some ambient occlusion to make things feel more heavier. Okay, or we should say that as the touching shadow. I have a really dark area there. That's not because of the lighting actually. That's because my model is not always all the way reached to the top. Okay, so that's one of the things I didn't do well in my modeling stage. So I need to go back and fix that. But anyway, for now I think the lighting here is pretty nice now. I have enough brightness because I changed the exposure down there. And then I have a reflection probe to help me to get better result. Better reflection result. Okay. Now let's actually drag in some player to play it. So let's go to the asset and let's just import the character there into the scene. Okay. And then we can go find the third person, refab, and then this guy, drag into the level. Okay, we can also parent the main camera to it and zero out everything in the main camera, and then of course the rotation, and then let's drag it up and backward. Alright, now let's go play the game. Let's see, I can walk around. Okay, no problem. But something is actually feels off here if you really pay close attention here, which is my guy is not affected by anything, any color or the indirect lighting inside of the scene. So it appears to be too bright in that manner. So the reason for that is because anything that is non-static, in this case my player here, he's not static because he has to be, he's moving, right? So anything that is not static will not receive any indirect lighting information, so all the lighting on it is direct lighting effect. Okay, so to really make it be affected by any indirect lighting result, you need something called the LED probe. So let's go back to the scene and then let's do create that, which is underneath asset, a game object actually, light, and then the LED probe group. Okay, the instance you create that, you see now it becomes darker and it feels more suited to the environment. Okay, so what is this? LED probe. Okay, they're actually a very simple concept. All those balls here, they're one LED probe, and together they're called a LED probe group. Okay, and every little sphere here, every little probe here will be capturing the lighting condition right there. Okay, right there, and then they're storing those lighting information, and anything goes in between those balls will be using that information stored between the balls and then blend their value based on the location of the object. Okay, for example, if I have an object here and it's going to sample color, the lighting color from that ball and that ball, and because it's closer to that ball, so the lighting condition this guy is having here will be closer to the lighting condition of that ball. Okay, so it's just blending or tapering between the color information sampled by those balls, or lighting informations actually captured by those balls. Let's see that in real action here. I can grab those 4 balls and then drag them to this end, and grab those balls and drag it to there. Okay, and then I can go actually Control D to duplicate those balls and drag another row here to the far outside. Alright, and then I'm gonna go to edit mode again. You have to turn on that to be able to select balls. Let me just drag those balls back. Okay, now let's see something really interesting here. Let me actually drag the other balls up there and drag them closer to the inside. Okay, so we can have a bigger comparison here. Anyway, so let me play the game now. Okay, and what I want you to see is that when my player is going closer to this wall, because this guy is getting closer to those balls. Oh, let me actually move those balls closer to the wall, so we have a bigger difference. Okay, so now if my guy is on this half of the room, think of that as a wall here, those 2 balls as a wall, and we have divided the room into 2 halves, this half and the other half, right? When my player is in this half, his color is much brighter, and look what happens when my guy crosses this line here. He becomes darker instantly. See that? The reason for that is because those balls here, those 4 balls here, are capturing the lighting information on the outside, and they're super bright. So when my guy is between those two, this row and the other row here, if my guy is between those 2 rows, he's getting brighter color because those are brighter, and the color he's getting is blending between this row and that row based on the location of my character, right? But the other side, I have both of those 2 rows inside of the room, so their color information are both dark. So that's why when I cross that line, my character becomes dark instantly. Okay, so that's how it works. Then we can try to actually distribute our LED probe according to our lighting conditions. So what we really need here is actually just having all the LED probe inside of the room, assuming that my character never goes out, because he will fall when he goes out. Okay, and also because the lighting condition changes from the area closer to the door to the inside, I'm gonna have multiple rows here to gradually blend the color information in the correct way. And the interesting thing here is that because of the lighting here up and down doesn't really change that much, so I probably don't need multiple rows in this up and down direction. Okay, so depending on different situation, you may have arranged your LED probe in different ways. To duplicate them, just grab them and then Control D, just like how you duplicate stuff in Maya. Alright, now I'm having a more accurate lighting condition for my guy here. I might need one more row for the outside. okay? Maybe really close to the wall. That way, when my guy is getting close to the wall, he's be able to getting brighter color from the window. Okay. So now when my guy is getting closer to the window, he's supposed to be getting brighter color because the window are supposed to be brighter, right? So you can really carefully arrange your lighting condition here, so your guy looks more fit into the environment. So when my guy is working closer and closer to the lighting of the window and the door, you see he's getting brighter and he's getting darker when he ran away. So those light probe is really useful for anything that is not static and you want them to be affected by the baked lighting, and that's the only way. So you want to make sure that you have light probe on the areas your player is going to go through, especially when there is a huge change on the lighting condition. Alright. So far all we have lighting wise is just the sun and then the skybox. That's all we have, and you can see that we can achieve very good quality already by just having two lights. That's the powerful thing of the Unity baking ways. The real-time baking is awesome, and then the quality doesn't have to be cranked up really high to get a decent result anyways. Reflection here, there's a little trick here. If you scale this ball really big, you drag it back, okay. If you play the game and look at the ball here, you see that our guy is not inside of the ball or the reflection. Okay. Now the reason for that is that the reflection probe doesn't have any, doesn't capture any movable object. So you can change the tab to real time. Okay, that's gonna allow it to capture any non-static object, including the player. Okay, so if we play the game now, I can see my player, but there's another weird thing. When I move my player, that guy inside of the ball doesn't move. That's also because the light probe is set it as to refresh this one, to refresh at the on awake. So if you have stuff moving, like some particle lighting or even your player moving, you want to update it every frame, but that's gonna be a performance hit too. But now you see when I played my player, the player inside of the ball also moves. Okay, another strange thing is that you see that black thing there? Okay, so what is that? That black, big black area is actually this guy, the ball, the crystal ball, or the reflective ball we created earlier. The reason it's black is because the reflection probe only bounces once. Okay, only captured the bounces once. So how do you change that? You can go to window and then lighting. Let me drag the lighting here. You can change the bounces time, reflection bounces to something higher, like 3. Okay, and it will rebake. And now you see we're getting rid of that weird black dot because the bouncing is tracing multiple times. So this guy will be also traced inside of the reflection probe. So now you're getting rid of that weird stuff. Okay. So just be aware of that. If you have multiple reflected stuff and you see black dot inside of them, that's because the reflection bounces are too low. Okay, just like the reflection, the transparency ray count in renders like mental ray, vary, or Arnow, they all have that option. All right, so I think that's all about reflection probe. Okay, so let's examine some other lighting, but they're actually quite simple. You have point and spotlight. Spotlight is just a point light that has a range. In default settings, the lights doesn't have any shadow. You want to check on either hard or soft shadow. Okay, so that's basically what the point light is. You can just position it wherever you want. You have the range. You can drag the range in and out to affect how much it can affect. Okay, so there's really not too much to talk about, but the current real-time indirect bounces light shadow for spot and point lights is not supported, okay, meaning they cannot be baked. But it's okay. I use those lights to enhance my lighting situation. The primary ones is already achieved, so I don't really worry about that too much. Another thing you may are wondering is how about mesh light, right? If you want if you want a mesh to be able to light the thing, you can of course create any geometry, like maybe this cube. Okay, I'm gonna make this cube emit light, and that mesh light need a material on it. So let me go create a material here. Let's call it red light. Okay, now give the emission a red color and also drag the emission up to 100 or something to really make it strong. All right, and then let's grab that red light to the ball. Okay, and then in the default settings it doesn't actually do any baking for it. Okay, that's because the light, its global illumination here is real time. Okay, change that to baked. And then also the oh, sorry about that. The geometry also need to be static. That will actually bake it into the scene, but it's gonna cost a little while. Oh, I think we can actually use real time. Those things are supposed to be the same as the last settings, real time or baked. Okay, so you can use either actually. So you need to wait for the baking to finish to really see the effect. This light transport being baked is the relation I was talking about. The lighting is too strong. Oh, that is too strong. Okay, so I need to lower it down. I just want to show the effect. Maybe just 12 or something and make it rebake. 12 is even too strong. Maybe just 1. Okay, 1 maybe is too weak. Let's try something like 4. Okay, that's gonna give me something. Let me make it smaller. Anyway, so this is using the geometry to do some lighting, and of course you can change other things like the shader can be actually I think it can be just a unlighted one. Okay. Oh, texture? Nope. Maybe not. Okay. I'm not super familiar with the material here for the lighting part. Maybe just the standard. Of course, you can change the albedo to the same color. That's gonna make it looks like it's just emitting color there. 2 maybe it's too low. Let's try maybe 10 or something to make it stronger. Okay. And then another thing you want to have, if you want to have this light to, I think it's actually pretty weak here. Maybe it's still baking. Nope, let me change that to a really high value just to see it blooming again. Anyway, so I think it's too strong, so it must be a value here. You can go 4, and I'm just not really finding that sweet point yet. So maybe 30 or something. Okay. So now I can see when my character is getting closer, it's getting some red color up there. Okay. And then you'll then see that some of the area are getting red color a lot. Okay. It could be because the lighting is too strong. That also could be because your LED probe is too simple. So all the LED probe is here is getting the red color from that box. Okay. So if you can have, let me go select my LED probe group, and that's when it's getting a little bit tedious. You can have some LED probe here. Okay. Duplicate it and then drag it in. Oh, actually edit mode. Control D. So for this area, you may need a more resolution because there is a huge lighting change there, and you don't want it to be all spread out up there. So give it more density. Oh, maybe not that one. For the box there. Okay, to get better distribution of the lighting. Okay. And one more thing you can do with this light is that if you wanted to actually show feel shiny, you can go to the image effect script, and there's one thing you can apply on the camera, which is the blooming. This one, drag it in. Okay, and you can have some blooming from that light. Okay, if you wanted that. Okay. You can turn HDR on because we have HDR camera, so it's gonna be more accurate. Okay. So now it appears to be having a little bit shiny color or color bleeding too. Okay. So I think that's mostly you need to know about the lighting to light the scene. Although it may take you more time to refine it. Another thing you can do here after you are happy with the lighting result is for the main camera, you can also do some color grading or color correction on it. If you're familiar with compositing, you know what that is, right? Compositing is not only for film. A lot of games are adapting that, especially Unreal Engine. There is a compositing or post effect section right on the camera, and you can change that to color grading or color correct the image to a very, very flexible level. And here you can use coding for Unity too, like it does have this color correction curves. Okay, and that's curves. You can change the RGB curve. Let me make them all flat for now. Okay, to go back, and if I want some red tint, I can drag that up a little bit. Actually, double click here in the middle to add a new point and drag that one up to give it a little red tint, and I can have that for the green too. Okay, so you can do color grading here, have more saturation or less saturation if you wanted to have that. You can also change the contrast. So compositing, in short, if you're familiar with that, that's basically what compositing is. So it's not compositing is not only for film. It's now gradually updated or adapted by game industry too, in order to get even high level graphic quality. I really don't like that box light, so let me just go delete it. Anyway, so that's all about lighting. I think are worth mentioning here, but there could be more for Unity. But I think those ones are really essential and helpful to get good graphic quality. Without the bloom and then the AO and then the tone mapping, that's the result you're getting. So those things can always be helpful to give you better result. Okay, see that little blooming there? Looks quite nice actually. So yeah, that is for lighting and baking in Unity. The quality here, like what I mentioned earlier, you can now crank those up to get even higher quality, because right now all the lighting is using the real time. You can actually uncheck Bake GI, okay, to because it's not needed. You can of course have both on. Generally speaking, their official website or documentation recommend you to just choose one, okay, either Bake GI or pre-computed. Although if you're using if you're doing high-end quality like PC AAA graphic, you can of course use both, okay. But generally speaking, having both on is really expensive, okay. And that is it. The fog is something you can turn on to have some fog, but really doesn't matter. You can also have fog effect from the global fog here on the camera, which is also kind of cool. Okay, to give it some fog. But yeah, I think I'm rambling about too much stuff, but you can experiment with those coding, like even depth of field somewhere here. Okay, focal distance here to change the distance here, maybe on the player, and then more range, so you can have something over or out of focus. Cool. So yeah, that is all about. I don't want to mention too much stuff, but yeah, just experiment with those things and see what kind of final effect you can get in Unity. Generally speaking, Unity's baking and rendering is actually pretty nice if you can crank up the quality. So let's see what result you can get from all those techniques. So thanks for watching, and see you next time.